Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 1, The Body as a Whole. Now, your textbook starts off right away by stating that the science aspect of your massage therapy studies is as important as the mechanics of giving a massage, but I would even argue that it might be a little bit more important. You need to meet your clients where they're at in terms of their physical, mental, and emotional health. And above and beyond that, the simple mechanics of the body need to be understood to give a proper massage. If someone is out of alignment, you could easily make the claim that your bones are where they are because your muscles pull them there. When you're a baby learning how to crawl, your femur, your leg bone, your thigh bone, is almost completely smooth. All of the grooves and notches that we will learn about in a later chapter are developed over time from the stressors of learning how to crawl then walk. So if your bones are where your muscles pull them, how do your muscles go? What shape are they? Where do they attach? What joints do they move? What direction do the fibers go in? These are all important things to know so that you know the proper direction and pressure and placement of your massage pressure and your strokes. So as we go through this course and your next course in advanced anatomy, I want you to keep how you will apply this to your client's body at the forefront of your mind. How will learning this affect the way that I give massage? Now, this chapter covers the basics, such as structure, which is anatomy, and function, physiology of the body. And something that it mentions is homeostasis. And homeostasis is a condition in which the body's internal environment remains relatively constant within physiological limits. It is maintained by adaptive responses, specific control and feedback mechanisms that keep adjusting the body systems to maintain the state. You can even argue that with bacterial colonies and pH of various liquids, even our external environment, like our skin, is constantly striving for homeostasis. We're going to cover that concept much more deeply in the chapters to come. Your book also briefly covers yin and yang in this chapter. Yin and yang is almost like anatomy and physiology. It is the duality, two things coming together to make a whole. You cannot have function without structure, and structure guides the function of the body. So structure and function are the two sides of the coin for how your body works. And yin and yang are the duality of wholeness that are represented in the book's terms as Asian terminology. This doesn't cover it very deeply, but yin corresponds to the Western concept of structure, and yang corresponds to function, the opposite but complementary qualities. Yang is said to contain the seed of yin, and yin the seed of yang, which is why when you see them symbolized in a circular drawing, the black has a circle of white, and the white has a circular seed of black within it. Yin is said to exemplify the qualities of night, the dark, the cold, material things. It produces things that are of form and function. It stands for the moon, contraction, femininity, passivity, and it also stands for specific organs in the body, such as the liver, the heart, the spleen, lungs, and kidney. Whereas yang stands for the day, immaterial things. It produces energy. It is hot. It stands for the sun, the daylight, warmth, positivity, activeness, and masculinity. The intestines and the organs associated with this particular energy are gallbladder, small intestine, the stomach, large intestine, and urinary bladder. And we're going to cover Eastern terminology in much more depth in later chapters. But I would like you just to get the feeling that the body is described in many ways and in many cultures in different ways. We will be discussing energy pathways, which go complementary along with nerve pathways, which are run by energy inside of the body. Your nervous system runs on electrical impulses, and electrical impulses arguably are energy. They follow the same energy lines that Eastern medicine has been studying for thousands of years. Unfortunately, we do not go into heavy depth into this topic, but every time you see it pop up, I would like you to think about it for a little while and perhaps broaden your horizons at a different way to look at the human body, that it's all not necessarily just labels and names of where a muscle attaches to a bone or the name of a particular vessel in the body, that sometimes these things also have additional meanings in other cultures, and perhaps ones that Western medicine is just now catching up to find. So all this talk about energy sounds kind of lively, right? So how do we know that something is alive? Well, there's no single set of criteria that actually defines it. If any of you are Star Trek fans, it's almost like the episode where Picard is trying to argue that Data is a living being, even though he's an android. How do you define life? And do we recognize it right away when we see it? So we look at characteristics of life, which consist of multiple factors. There are maintenance of boundaries, such as keeping the internal environment distinct from the external environment. You are able to keep your lungs firmly inside of your body. There is movement, the ability to transport the entire being as well as the internal components throughout the body. So when you take a step forward, your body moves forward, and so do the lungs that are inside of your body. Responsiveness, the ability to sense, monitor, and respond to changes in the external environment. Someone comes around a corner and scares you, and you scream, letting all of the air out of your lungs forcefully. Conductivity, the movement of energy from one point to another. Your synapses fire off electrical signals. There's energy being sent down the line to tell your lungs to expand or contract based on your intercostal muscles and diaphragm movement. Metabolism is a chemical reaction that occurs in cells to affect the transformation, production, or consumption of energy. You eat and digest your food, and that food is turned into energy for your body to use. Growth, a normal increase in the size and or number of cells. Obviously, you weren't always this side inside of your mother's womb. Your body does grow and you increase in the number of cells. Respiration, the absorption, transport, use, or exchange of respiratory gases such as oxygen and carbon dioxide. Well, here are your lungs again. You do breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. Digestion, the process by which food products are broken down into simple substances to be used by individual cells. Absorption, the transport and use of nutrients. Your body takes those simple substances broken down during digestion and carries them throughout the body to where they're needed. Secretion, the production and delivery of specialized substances for diverse functions. Secreting hormones inside of the body. Secreting sweat. Is sweat a secretion? You certainly leak water out of your skin. That's pretty magical. Excretion, the removal of waste products. Waste also comes out within the sweat. So is that also a form of excretion? Going to the bathroom, breathing out carbon dioxide. These are all ways that your body excretes waste products. Circulation, the movement of fluids, nutrients, secretions, and waste products from one area of the body to another. Reproduction, the formation of a new being. Also the formation of new cells in the body to permit growth, repair, and replacement. Your blood cells are replaced every 120 days. Other parts of your body are replaced either more or less frequently, but your entire body is continuously being renewed. Well, we know that we're alive by studying the characteristics of life, but how are we alive? How are we organized? So we're going to take a look at this video as it breaks down the organizational scheme of the body, the organism itself. This image from your book shows that you, at the very basic level, are a chemical. And the chemicals join together to form molecules, which band together to form tissues, organelles. They become a cell. Cells group together to create large tissue systems. They band together to become a singular organ in the body. The various organs band together for a function and become an organ system. And when we combine all of these organ systems working together, we are an organism.
Levels of organization of body structure and function. How are body parts organized, and how do they work so well together? In order to understand the human body and anatomy, it's good to break things down into levels. In this video, we're going to look at the 7 levels of organization of body structure and function. The first level is the chemical level, and it starts with atoms, which make up every material thing in the universe, including our bodies. Atoms can bond together to form molecules, which are larger chemical groupings, and molecules can combine with other molecules and more atoms to form macromolecules. The next level of organization in the body is the organelle level. Organelles are made up of chemical groupings, and they are tiny organ-like things that are in cells. Organelles have specific functions in cells, and they cannot live outside of cells. And without organelles, cells cannot survive. The cellular level is next. Cells are the smallest unit in the body that shows the basic characteristics of life. It's estimated that the body has around 100 trillion cells, and each cell is made up of a membrane, a nucleus, and a cytoplasm that houses the organelles that are required for the cell to function properly. There are many different types of cells in the body that perform different functions in the body. The next level is the tissue level. Tissue is a group of similar cells that have developed from the same part of the embryo and all perform a certain function. Tissue cells are surrounded by the matrix or non-living intracellular substances. There are 4 major types of tissue in the body: connective tissue, muscle tissue, nervous tissue, and epithelial tissue. Next up is the organ level. Organs are made up of different kinds of tissues that together can perform different functions in the body. For example, the liver, which is an organ located in the abdominal region of the body, stores some vitamins and minerals, stores glycogen, which is a stored form of energy, helps to destroy old red blood cells, and helps to detoxify the blood to get rid of harmful substances. The next level of organization in the body is the system level. Systems are comprised of organs that, by working together, can perform more complex types of functions in the body. There are 11 major systems in the body. Many times systems work together to accomplish different needs of the body, such as the respiratory system takes oxygen in, and the cardiovascular system transports the oxygen to various parts of the body. The organism level is the last level. The overall human organism is made up of all the previous levels we just covered. And that be the levels of organization of body structure and function.
So just a brief look back at chemicals. I included this table 1.2 from your chapter 1 in your textbook because it's pretty awesome. It has the element, including the atomic number, the symbol that you can find on the periodic table, and the percent of the weight in the body that element actually is. In this case, oxygen is 65% of your body, and carbon is 18.6%. That is the majority of who you are as a person is oxygen and carbon. You can look at the rest of this. As you can see, some of these elements, such as calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, magnesium, these are all things that you need to survive and maintain in your body. And you can understand why the nutritional value or the intake of these minerals or elements are extremely important for maintaining homeostasis within the body. Your book covers other topics in Chapter 1, such as acid and alkaline solutions, which we will absolutely cover in more depth in other assignments throughout the week. DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, which is the hereditary material in humans and almost all other organisms. Information in DNA is stored as a code map of 4 chemical bases. We will cover this in further detail as well throughout the chapter. And of course, the cell. Your book has a pretty awesome explanation of the cell membrane and filtration, as well as different functions of the cell with some pretty decent illustrations describing the parts of the cell. I do have assignments for you throughout the week that explain the cell in great detail, so I'm not going to wax poetic about it inside of this lecture. One thing that you will hear very, very often, however, over and over again, because it is the most abundant tissue in the body and perhaps the most important type of tissue in the body, as well as the type of tissue that you will be touching as a massage therapist the most, is connective tissue. Once we go past the cell and we're talking about tissue levels, we're going to talk about epithelial tissue, connective tissue, collagen, elastic fibers, reticular fibers, dense regular connective tissue, dense irregular connective tissue, loose tissue, adipose tissue, and cartilage. There are several types of cartilage, so I'm going to take a brief break from talking and let you watch this video on connective tissue in the body.
Connective tissue is the most widespread and diverse of all the tissues, and they have 3 main components: cells, protein fibers, and ground substance. Ground substance is produced by connective tissue cells. It is a non-cellular material, and it can be solid, semi-solid, or viscous, meaning thick and sticky. The cells and protein fibers reside within this ground substance, and the ground substance and protein fibers together are often referred to as the extracellular matrix. There are many functions that different types of connective tissues perform, such as in many cases it provides protection for internal organs. For instance, the skull protects the brain. It can also provide structural support, as bones provide the framework for the body. Connective tissues connect and bind certain structures. For instance, ligaments bind bone to bone, and tendons bind muscles to bones. It also provides for storage of some nutrients, as bones store calcium and phosphorus. It's important in transportation, as blood, which is a connective tissue, transports nutrients, gases, and waste throughout the body. And connective tissue helps with immune function, as many connective tissues contain white blood cells that protect the body from invaders. Now we're going to go through the various types of connective tissues and the basic structure of each of these types. On the screen is a board with the different classifications of connective tissues. As you can see, there are 3 main classifications: connective tissue proper, supporting connective tissue, and fluid connective tissue. Connective tissue proper, which is sometimes referred to as fibrous because it has many fibers in its extracellular matrix, is divided into 2 subgroups based on the proportions of cells, fibers, and ground substance. Subgroup 1 is loose connective tissue, and it has fewer cells and fibers and more ground substance than subgroup 2, dense connective tissue. There are 3 main types of loose connective tissue. Areolar connective tissue has a viscous ground substance with both collagen and elastic protein fibers. It is highly vascularized, meaning it has a good blood supply, and it contains a large number of fibroblast cells, which produce many components of the extracellular matrix. It surrounds certain organs and blood vessels and binds skin. Adipose connective tissue is also highly vascularized, and it is comprised primarily of adipocytes, which are fat cells and have very little extracellular matrix. Adipocytes are filled with fat droplets, which push the nucleus toward the plasma membrane. There are two types of adipose connective tissue, white and brown. Brown adipose tissue is found more in infants and newborns, and white adipose tissue stores energy, insulates some organs, and provides a cushion against shocks to the body. Adipose connective tissue is located throughout the body, as it can be found under the skin and surrounding various organs. Reticular connective tissue has a viscous ground substance with a branching network of reticulin fibers within it. Reticular cells and the fibers provide a supportive framework in the spleen, lymph nodes, and bone marrow. Now for dense connective tissue, which also has three main types. Dense regular connective tissue consists of tightly packed parallel collagen fibers with a limited amount of ground substance and fibroblast cells squeezed between the fiber layers. This tissue does not have a good blood supply, so when injured it takes a long time to heal. This tissue is found in tendons and ligaments as it can withstand a lot of stress. Dense irregular connective tissue consists of collagen fibers that are clumped together forming an irregular pattern. It also contains fibroblast cells and has more ground substance and a much richer blood supply than dense regular connective tissue. This tissue can handle stress in multiple directions and is found in the dermis of the skin and in the periosteum, which covers bone. Elastic connective tissue consists of densely packed elastic fibers, with fibroblasts scattered throughout. It is found in the trachea, vocal cords, and walls of some arteries. Next, let's look at the second classification of connective tissues, supporting connective tissue, which also has two subgroups, cartilage and bone, with cartilage having a semi-solid matrix and bone having a solid matrix. There are three main types of cartilage. Hyaline cartilage consists of chondrocyte cells which support and repair the cartilage matrix, and these cells occupy small spaces called lacunae and are scattered throughout the matrix. It has a poor blood supply, causing injuries to heal slowly and sometimes not at all. Hyaline cartilage is the most common type of cartilage, and it caps the bones of synovial joints, is found in the nose, and in the respiratory passage. Fibrocartilage consists of dense, wavy-looking collagen fibers, and it too has chondrocyte cells and lacunae. Fibrocartilage acts as a great shock absorber and is resistant to compression. It is the toughest form of cartilage, and it is what makes up the discs of the spine and the meniscus in the knee joint. The third type of cartilage is elastic cartilage. Elastic cartilage contains some collagen fibers and a high number of elastic fibers, and it also has chondrocyte cells and lacunae. This cartilage has a high degree of flexibility and can be found in the external ear and in the epiglottis, which prevents swallowed food from entering the trachea. Bone is the second type of supporting connective tissue. It's more solid than cartilage but less flexible, and it has a rich blood supply. The extracellular matrix of bone consists of collagen fibers and mineral salt crystals and bone cells called osteocytes that occupy small spaces called lacunae and are scattered throughout the matrix. Bones provide support and protection and also provide a point of attachment for muscles. There are two main bone tissue types, compact and spongy. Compact bone forms cylindrical structures called osteons, which look like rings, and they surround a central canal that houses nerves and blood vessels. Spongy bone has a lattice-like look to it, and it is located in the interior of a bone, and it is strong but lightweight. Next up is the third classification of connective tissues, fluid connective tissue, which also has two subgroups, blood and lymph. Blood tissue is comprised of formed elements and has a liquid ground substance called plasma. The formed elements include red and white blood cells and platelets. The plasma contains proteins as well. The red blood cells transport oxygen and carbon dioxide. The white blood cells protect the body from foreign invaders. Platelets help with clotting the blood. And the plasma transports nutrients, wastes, and hormones throughout the body. Lymph originates from the interstitial fluid that surrounds tissue cells, and it transports fats and white blood cells throughout the body. And that be the basics on connective tissue.
Chapter 1 continues after talking about connective tissue to speak about fascia, which is incredibly important and the thing that connects everything to everything else in the body. Fascia is a sheath. Basically, it's a sheet of connective tissue that attaches and closes and separates muscles and all of your internal organs. The fascial system is a network of interacting, interrelated, interdependent tissues that compose a complex whole, and it all collaborates to perform a movement. The best way that I can describe fascia is one of two ways. If you can imagine that all of your muscles and all of your organs are inside of Ziploc bags, but then all the edges of those Ziploc bags melted together. So while there's still bags around the organs and muscles, now they're also glued together everywhere that they touch and attach. That is how fascia operates. Or if you think about a flat sheet laying completely wrinkle-free on top of a bed, if you pull or twist one corner of that sheet, everything is going to turn and twist and pull to that corner. And that's how a fascial system is interconnected. When you do a movement, you get a tug on one corner and everything moves with it. And we will cover that more in depth as we get further and further into the class. Chapter 1 also makes a brief mention of muscle tissue, which is highly important to us as massage therapists, but we will cover that in much further depth at a further chapter. Nervous tissue, which we will be covering in depth in advanced anatomy. Organ levels, and the system level of the body. For now, I just want you to focus on your key terms that you are learning and understand how the body works together, from very basic chemical bonds, building molecules, to cells, to tissues, to organ systems, and how they all work together to create your body that is functional and capable of all of the characteristics of life.